This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Since the early morning hours, crowds of Lebanese citizens from all national forces and organizations began moving towards Beirut, where the open-ended peaceful sit-in is being held. This big populist demonstration included the largest crowds in the history of Lebanon. By 3 p.m., which was specified as the 0 hour of the peaceful sit-in, more than 1 million people have joined the demonstration. They formed waves of people in Riyadh al-Sul Square and Martyrdom Square, in addition to all the surrounding streets. They chanted phrases demanding the resignation of the Syria government and vowing to continue the sit-in until this demand is fulfilled.
Senora, get out. We want free government. Senora, get out. We want free government. We are fed up with lies and tears. We are fed up with lies and tears. We want a government to feed the hungry. We want a government to feed the hungry. We are fed up with lies and tears. We want a government to feed the hungry.
كلمة قوى المعارضة الوطنية استهلها النائب العماد ميشيل عون رئيس كتلة التغيير والإصلاح.
Parliament member and head of the Free Patriotic Movement, Michel Aoun, gave a speech confirming that the opposition is committed to its promise to the Lebanese people to protect and defend Lebanon and form a national unity government representing all Lebanese, not only one group.
I talk to you today, asking you to support the path of change and reform, the path of protecting freedom of choice and citizens' rights. All citizens. Today we are being subjected to systematic marginalization, as if those who are in power wanted to create confrontation. We are not interested in this. We want openness, and we are looking for any possible way to form a national unity government representing all the Lebanese. We cannot accept the claim that the Lebanese government today is a national unity government. This government has crossed its boundaries. There are clear violations to the Constitution. We hope that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet reconsider these violations. The only way out of this is a resignation.
The demonstration that Hezbollah and its allies in the March 8th coalition have been planning for a long time was distinguished by invective and insults, contrary to the promises that it would be a civilized rally.
This is the picture being shown by Hezbollah's media. But what they did not show was the details of this demonstration. Hezbollah tried to show other Lebanese that it was a patriotic demonstration, bringing together Lebanon's different political and religious sects. But the reality on the ground was different. It was a Hezbollah demonstration in every sense of the word. Take a look at the real picture. Security forces were in semi-official uniform. They enforced order only on the Amal movement and let the yellow flags and opposition colors, especially orange, to run free. They were all from the southern suburbs. The color mosaic was completed at Riyadh area. Hezbollah's security forces moved to maintain order only when cameras were around.
The Lebanese opposition, which decided to take to the streets in the next few hours, is made up of a large number of forces and parties from most of Lebanon's sects, including Hezbollah and the Free Patriotic movement. They claim that they represent the majority in Lebanon and that they will not cease their activities until their demands have been met, namely full political participation.
المعارضة اللبنانية إلى شوارع بيروت وساحاتها.
The Lebanese opposition took to the streets of Beirut. It is headed by Hezbollah and Michel Aoun, but includes various religious and political parties. This united front began forming following the assassination of former Prime Minister Rafiq al-Hariri in February of 2005. In March of the same year, Hezbollah staged a large demonstration in response to what was later called the majority force. Michel Aoun on that day switched to the other side. From the beginning, allies representing a number of Lebanese forces stood by Hezbollah. Among them were those who represented the Omar Karami government, who resigned under pressure from public opinion in the wake of the assassination. They include Salman Frangia, a Christian political figure with influence in northern Lebanon, and Talal Arslan, a descendant of the famous Druze family by the same name. They also include Karami himself and other Sunni figures whose positions became clearer and clearer as the events unfolded. After the 2005 parliamentary elections, in which the current opposition felt cheated, Hezbollah and the Free Patriotic movement made an agreement under the leadership of Aoun. This is the foundation of the opposition. Step by step, parties and forces that found themselves going against proposals made by the majority and the idea that Lebanon was being steered toward the Western camp began to fill the new opposition. From here, the Communist and Syrian Social Nationalist parties, along with the Nasserist forces, the People's Movement, and the Sunni Tawhid and Islamic Labor parties, stood together and made their demands using the force of the Lebanese people after talks reached a dead end. What was noticeable was that people from outside Hezbollah and Michel Aoun's party planned the next steps. The voices of prominent personalities, such as former government leaders, were heard, calling for democracy and a national unity government. This government is the demand for which the opposition has taken to the streets. They want to form a government that reflects what they say is their true political position. The majority force-supported government, for its part, said that this is the beginning of a coup and an attempt to delay the international court that is supposed to try those suspected of killing al-Hariri.
المفترض أن تحاكم ما يشتبه بتورطه في اغتيال الحريري.
The roads of Beirut were crowded with people coming from all over the country to support the sit-in by the opposition.
ساعة
The 0 hour started, and the call to protest was well received by huge crowds of people. Crowds of people supporting the opposition proposals poured into the streets. Everybody came, young and old from the north, Jubail, Kerswan, Tripoli, and Jakarta. They all have the same demand, to dissolve the current government.
We came to tell General Aoun that we are always with him, and may God protect him.
Where did you come from?
I came from the north, from Minjas Akkar. I came to tell General Aoun that whenever he calls on us, we will respond.
I came from Jubail. We pressured the school to let us leave early. We left at 12:30 and came to this demonstration.
What made you come here?
I came because we want to make the government fall.
We're fed up with corruption, overspending, and theft.
They tell us that by coming here, we have dug our own graves. We tell them no, we came here to push the dirt away from our graves so we can stand up.
We are Christian Maronites who decided to join the demonstration because we want to save our country. We have not come because we want to dig a grave for our country.
Iraqi eyewitnesses confirmed to New TV that kidnappings and killings are occurring with American acquiescence and sometimes even with American support.
After April 9, 2003, when American occupation forces entered Iraq, many other forces invaded the lives of all Iraqis, without exception. The latest and most evident of these phenomena are the continued kidnappings, which have become such an entrenched practice that they are most difficult to stop, especially considering that the key player in maintaining security has done nothing to prevent them.
I think that the main reason behind the security breakdown is the American occupation, because the American occupation has not come up with anything new in Iraq. They have not come up with any democracy or human rights. Rather, they caused the killing of people and Iraqi citizens.
A dangerous twist concerning the kidnapping operations is that some of them are being carried out by members who wear official uniforms, like those who kidnapped 150 people in broad daylight inside the Ministry of Higher Education and Research. According to eyewitnesses, some bombings are also being carried out by foreign forces in Iraq.
Sadr City doesn't have any gas. My father was waiting in line for gas with many people from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. At 6 o'clock, as people were waiting for gas, a bomb exploded near them. The Americans are the reason behind the security deterioration and sectarian strife in Iraq. The Americans are behind it.
I saw them with my own eyes on the Medora Bridge wearing the traditional Iraqi headdress. They came in a pickup truck. There was a meeting between them and the police. There were 5 of them, 2 of whom continued to talk to the police. I saw them with my own eyes. When the men first started talking to the police, he spoke in a foreign language, American. They didn't even have a mustache. They were Americans.
I saw them with my own eyes. One man came in his car with his family. He didn't get too close to them, but he approached from a far distance. They shot him and his entire family. It seems that they were Jewish. Such people have no religion or creed.
The American occupation, which possesses the largest war machines, has been involved in dangerous covert operations, and Iraqis are forced to pay the price. The saying, "He who lacks something cannot give it," accurately describes the reality of the American occupation in Iraq. Because of this occupation, Iraqis are forced to live amidst explosions and bloody scenes, day and night. Nareem Atamimi, New TV channel from the heart of Baghdad.
An Egyptian court sentenced 3 Islamists to death after they were found guilty of carrying out the attacks in Taba and other areas of Sinai, which killed 34 people in 2004. Mohammed al-Zahar has the details.
دقائق قليلة استغرقتها محكمة جنايات أمن الدولة العليا طوارئ خلال الجلسة التي عقدت بمدينة الإسماعيلية.
An Egyptian emergency state security court in Ismailia sentenced 3 men to death after concluding its final session in the trial to investigate the bombings that shook the Egyptian town of Taba in October 2004. The court found 3 men guilty of the attacks and will be sentenced to death. 7 others received between 5 years and life in prison. Before the sentence was delivered, the presiding judge stressed that both Islamic Sharia laws derived from the Quran and the Sunnah and Egyptian laws prohibit violence and terrorism and punishes those who kill or terrorize innocent people, whether Egyptians or foreigners.
الأول والثاني فإن المحكمة تنزل بالمتهمين الأول والثاني.
The court finds the first, second, and third defendants guilty. They will be sentenced to death in accordance with Egyptian criminal law. The crimes they committed have wounded our beloved Egypt and have shaken Egyptian society. Court is adjourned.
The court sentence was met with anger by the defendants and their family members. The defense team described their client's sentence as too harsh, saying the court put aside all legal procedures when it issued that sentence.
ننوه إلى أن المحامين بمصر
I want to stress that Egyptian lawyers and human rights activists continue to oppose emergency security courts and to support the rights of citizens to be tried in civil courts.
وحق المواطن المصري في أن يحاكم أمام قاضيه الطبيعي.
المتهمون في هذه القضية بحسب مصادر أمنية ينتمون لما يعرف.
The defendants, according to security sources, belong to an organization known as Tawhid and Jihad, which is believed to have plotted the series of attacks that Sinai witnessed in the last 2 years. According to the same sources, a number of the defendants who were sentenced in this trial for carrying out the attacks in Taba also have connections to the other bombings. The trial took about a year and a half, in which the court listened to testimonies by 50 people. The defendants can no longer appeal the court's decision, but they can petition the court to conduct another trial. Mohammed Salah Al-Zanar, Al-Arabiya, Ismailia.
محمد صلاح الزهار العربية مدينة الإسماعيلية.
And Iraqi troops backed by U.S. attack helicopters fought militants in central Baghdad on Friday when figures showed a sharp leap in the number of Iraqis who died violently in November. 2 Apache helicopters firing anti-missile flares swooped over Fatih neighborhood, a Sunni insurgent stronghold in one of their oldest parts of the capital, amid the slow thump of heavy machine gun fire. Meanwhile, Iraq's defense ministry said 43 people were detained and a house was found that appeared to be a guerrilla field hospital. Reports are unfolding that the Iranian-banned terror group MKO, also known as Munafiqeen, has aided and abetted with insurgents in killing Shiites in Iraq's Diyala province. The district's governor broke the news, saying the Iranian outlaws worked hand in glove with Sunni militia to massacre Shiites in post-war Iraq. And separately, the Iraqi Homeland Security Minister confirmed the news, saying the Iraqi government has solid evidence that the U.S.-backed MKO was an accomplice to terrorist attacks against Shiites in the province. He further said the Baghdad administration is determined to expel members of the outlawed group from the Iraqi soil. Bipartisan Commission on U.S. Options in Iraq will recommend a gradual reduction of American forces in the country and a significant diplomatic shift that would enlist U.S. adversaries to stabilize the increasingly chaotic country. The report will endorse troop withdrawals beginning possibly by early next year, but set no deadlines. U.S. forces also could be repositioned slowly away from the front lines. The highly anticipated report is expected to provide political cover to President George W. Bush to shift his policies meaningfully in an unpopular war.
Senator John Kerry says the U.S. should sit down for talks with Syria and Iran to put an end to growing insecurity in Iraq. Kerry told CNN Wednesday night the only way to work out a solution to the civil war in Iraq is to assemble all parties to the conflict, including permanent members of the UN Security Council, the Arab League, and Iraq's neighbors. The Massachusetts senator and former Democratic presidential nominee said U.S. presence in the war-hit country worsens the situation more than ever before. He added America should tease out a strategy to immediately reduce the troop level in Iraq and stem the spread of terrorism. John Kerry also said Washington should give prominence to diplomacy over the military option, which no longer works in Iraq. Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki said on Thursday that his country's forces would be able to assume security command by June 2007. Maliki told ABC television after meeting U.S. President George W. Bush in Jordan, at the beginning of next year, Iraq will increase the training of its forces when they reach an acceptable level. He rejected the White House notion that he's incapable of getting militias, saying Iraqi security forces need more weapons and training to curb the violence.
And a New Zealand court has issued a warrant at the request of a local citizen for the arrest of former IDF Chief of Staff Moshe Boogie Ya'alon, who was on a private visit to that island country. The warrant was then cancelled on the order of the New Zealand Attorney General, but Ya'alon left the country anyway. That citizen claimed that Ya'alon was responsible for events surrounding the targeted killing of Hamas leader Salah Shehadeh 4 years ago. At that time, the IDF dropped a 1-ton bomb on Shehadeh's apartment building, killing another 15 Palestinian civilians.
U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice continued her Middle East tour today, stopping in Amman for the second time this week to attend the U.S.-backed Middle East Diplomacy and Development Summit. Yesterday afternoon, Rice met with Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni and expressed appreciation for Israel's restraint over Palestinian violations of the ceasefire. She also called for the ceasefire to be consolidated and extended. IBA's Ellie Wohlgelenter has the story.
Secretary Rice met this morning with foreign ministers of the Gulf Cooperation Council as well as Egypt and Jordan. She used the opportunity to try to bolster the tenuous ceasefire in Gaza and to voice and urge support for Palestinian Chairman Mahmoud Abbas. Her visit to Amman today followed her day of meetings yesterday, first with Abbas and Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, and then with Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni. Rice was updated by Livni on the Egyptian-mediated negotiations to release kidnapped IDF Corporal Gilad Shalit. The two also discussed ways to steady the fragile ceasefire. Livni thanked Rice for sending a message to the moderates. Officials said no breakthrough was expected to come out of yesterday's talks, and that the primary purpose was to demonstrate U.S. involvement in the region and to strengthen the standing of Abbas. Rice is also trying to push for expanding the ceasefire to the West Bank. The issue of expanding the ceasefire is expected to be discussed at Sunday morning's cabinet meeting, but security officials are predicted to advise the cabinet not to comply. IDF officials will show evidence that despite the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, weapons smuggling is still continuing in the areas of Rafiq and the Philadelphia corridor. Officials fear that if the IDF ceases its arrest operations in the West Bank, the Palestinian organizations will rejuvenate the terror cells within a short time and will perpetrate terror attacks on Israeli targets. As of this morning, Palestinians have fired 14 Qassam rockets on Israel since the ceasefire went into effect Sunday. Ellie Wohlgelenter, IBA News.
The United Nations has appointed South African Archbishop Desmond Tutu to investigate last month's IDF shelling of Beit Hanun, during which 19 Palestinians were killed. Tutu, who is known for his anti-Israel rhetoric, will lead the UN Special Mission of Inquiry into the deaths. The United Nations report is due to be completed mid-December. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Elie Wiesel has been granted an honorary knighthood by British Queen Elizabeth II for his contribution to Holocaust education. A Holocaust survivor who went on to become a world-renowned author and lecturer, Wiesel established an educational trust in an effort to teach young people about the Holocaust and its lessons for the present. Wiesel received the Knight Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. Pope Benedict XVI wrapped up his 4-day trip to Turkey on a high note today, amid praise for his conciliatory gestures toward Islam. The pontiff conducted Mass at Istanbul's San Esprit Cathedral, and while saying that the Vatican does not, quote, wish to impose anything on anyone, he did call on Islamic nations to improve the rights and protections of their Christian minorities. The Pope raised the wrath of the Muslim world last September when he quoted a Byzantine emperor who denounced many of the Prophet Muhammad's teachings as violent. The Turkish media today, however, lauded Benedict, particularly for standing in prayer with Istanbul's primary Muslim cleric in the 17th century Blue Mosque. Today is World AIDS Day. People across the globe launched awareness campaigns aimed at overcoming the AIDS crisis. According to the United Nations and the World Health Organization's annual update on the global AIDS epidemic, almost 40 million people are living with HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. There were 4.3 million new infections in 2006. Here in Israel, there are more than 5,000 people living with the HIV virus. IBA's Leah Stern has this report.
Stop AIDS, keep the promise. That was the theme of this year's World AIDS Day, to inspire citizens across the globe to hold their political leaders accountable for the promises they made in fighting AIDS. People from all cultural and social backgrounds throughout the world paid tribute to those who lost their lives to the disease and looked into ways to raise awareness about the virus. Most agreed that there was a need for a greater global response to the crisis.
We should not and never accept the unspeakable injustices that are at the basis of this epidemic. And above all, I believe we need to believe that success is possible, that we can do it, and hold those in power accountable for how they perform on AIDS.
In Israel, clinics throughout the country offered free HIV testing and gave out complimentary condoms. According to the health ministry, the number of HIV and AIDS patients diagnosed here last year is on the rise, from an average of 322 cases between 2000 and 2004 to 350 cases in 2005. The basket of health services supplied by health funds for patients is among the most generous in the world, with 6 new medications added in 2005 and 2 more this year. Nations across Asia marked World AIDS Day. In Thailand, people took to the streets of Bangkok in an effort to promote safe sex. Demonstrators handed out condoms to passerby. Thailand, which has some 570,000 people living with the virus, is considered a model nation in the fight against AIDS. Moving to Europe, where more than 290,000 people have been diagnosed with AIDS, many Germans marked World AIDS Day in the classroom. Students met with people living with the disease and discussed the myths surrounding it. Meanwhile, in Spain, the screening of a new documentary on the subject challenged locals to pay attention to the disease. The film features an HIV patient who undergoes tests in several different countries around the world in his effort to raise awareness. Africa is the world's most hard-hit continent when it comes to AIDS victims. Today, some 25 million Africans are infected with HIV or AIDS. Last year, some 2 million people died of AIDS throughout the continent. More than 12 million African children have been orphaned by the disease. According to the World Health Organization, an estimated 25 million people have died from AIDS since it was first recognized on December 1st, 1981. This makes it one of the most destructive pandemics in recorded history.
The world has started to take the fight against HIV/AIDS as seriously as it deserves. Several countries are managing to fight the spread of the epidemic like never before. But the spread continues, and we need to mobilize like never before.
The World Health Organization predicts that AIDS will be the world's most frequent cause of death from infectious disease by the year 2030. According to Professor Robert Gallo, who co-discovered the HIV virus, the ultimate answer to the world AIDS pandemic is a successful preventative vaccine, which he believes may be a reality in the near future. This is Leah Stern for IBA News.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. Please visit linktv.org/Mosaic for more information about these broadcasters or to view previous Mosaic programs, obtain program transcripts, or receive the weekly Mosaic Intelligence Report. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Feyerdahl Foundation, the Otto Haas Charitable Trust, and by committed Link TV viewers like you. If you value this program, please send your tax-deductible contribution to Link TV, either through the website or the mailing address listed on your screen. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs which connect you to the world.